think we should meet.
Hi.
Hey, did you get my message?
Grandpa Jerry wrote to Martha. Recently, like this year.
Tell me everything. Can you?
He still wanted to connect.
You think they met up?
The card wasn't sent. It wasn't even addressed. I don't think he knew where she lived, but
Some part of him.
still wanted to know if there was something there. Should we give him that chance?
We'll try and find her.
Deliver the card?
If you were Martha, would you want to know how your granddad...
MPS. We connect. You thrive.
Business and life can be like the sea sometimes. Sometimes serene, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, and at times it brings the unexpected. However it is like, trust Phoenix Insurance for your home, car, business, and marine insurance needs. Call 0302 246 319 or 0243 690 492.
At Phoenix, you experience a delightful service delivered with wisdom.
Once again, the Almighty God has brought us to another successful year end 2023. Thank God He's brought us this far. We are grateful that the year is ending and we are going to go into another new year. It's been a challenging 2023, but of course it started slow. We all prayed and trusted God. Our government worked hard to ensure the economy remains resilient. We've seen improvements down the year, and I think that we are ending the year with at least some amount of traffic, though it will not be hitting exactly the records we have set for ourselves. But we thank God. We have every reason to be grateful to the Almighty God. We are looking forward to 2024 with better hopes, expecting the economy to pick up, for trade to grow through our ports. Ghana, I want to use this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude on behalf of the board and management to all staff of Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority for your hard work that has resulted in the progress we've made so far. Of course, all the major trading organizations, public, private, and partners, we are very grateful. We are looking forward to going to next year more prosperous than this year. And we can't do that without forgetting God, our Creator. So let's continue to thank Him and trust Him and pray that He'll give us a 2024 full of prosperity, full of good health, full of happiness and progress down into the end of 20. So that next year, 2024, by this time, we'll have good reason to be saying thank you to Him again and looking forward to a better future. Merry Christmas and a very, 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 very prosperous New Year.
We won't go until we get some, so bring some.
All right, so welcome back. It's now time for us to take a look at happenings in the port and shipping industry in the last week of the month of December 2023. And indeed, the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority had cause to thank God for His mercies, His faithfulness, and His guidance and protection throughout the year, and how far He has brought the Port Authority. So there was a Thanksgiving service on Friday to commemorate this particular occasion. Let's enjoy that.
The management and staff of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority have once again ended the year with a Thanksgiving service to celebrate God's faithfulness all year round. The praise-filled ceremony was also an opportunity for the workforce to seek God's mercies and guidance in the year 2024. The director of Port Tema, Sandro Poku, said, despite an economically challenging year, the Port Authority was able to rise above the storm.
In fact, the first 6 months were very, very low. As of January 2022, January to November, we have done 18.3 million tons of cargo. But this year, as of November ending, we've done 16.9 million tons of cargo. It has been difficult, but in all that we say thank you to God, but because GPHA did not sink, we are still afloat.
The director of port revealed that the authority has procured new machinery as part of initiatives to retool the port of Tema to improve productivity.
Our trucks came this year, but in January, by the second week, we would have 2 more new restackers, and then 8 more will follow.
She urged port staff to give off their best and prioritize safety in the new year. The Thanksgiving service also saw awards given to participants of the Interdepartmental Christmas Carols competition, where the Internal Audit Department placed first.
All right, it's now time for some international port and shipping news.
AD Ports signed a definitive agreement with the Red Sea Ports Authority for the development operation of a multi-purpose terminal at Savaga Seaport. This collaboration will see an investment of $200 million over 3 years, aimed at developing a state-of-the-art facility within the strategic location of the Red Sea, and will be the first internationally operated port serving the Upper Egypt region. The total investment will cover superstructure, equipment, buildings, and utilities within the concession area to create advanced facilities and leading-edge infrastructure. The terminal, spanning approximately 810,000 square meters, will feature a 1,000-meter quay wall and will handle diverse cargo types, including dry bulk, liquid bulk, containerized cargo, and ro-ro. This project is expected to bring substantial economic impact with cost savings and efficiency improvements to traders and businesses in the region. The terminal is on track to become operational by 2025, according to AD Ports. According to English language daily newspaper China Daily, citing data from the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, China continues to assert its dominance on the global shipbuilding scene. China's shipbuilding output surged by 12.3% year-on-year, reaching 38.09 million deadweight tons in the first 11 months of 2023, capturing over 50% of the world market. New orders followed suit, witnessing an impressive 63.8% year-on-year increase, securing a commanding 65.9% share globally. Industry insiders project China's shipbuilding prowess to persist into 2024, particularly in the export sector, driven by the rising demand for vessels powered by alternative fuels.
All right, so welcome back. It's now time for the word or phrase of the day. Remember, the word or phrase of the day has been fashioned to bring you up to speed with the terminologies, jargons, and keywords we use in this shipping industry. Today's word is multi-purpose terminal. Multi-purpose terminal.
A multi-purpose terminal can be defined as a complex of infrastructure, equipment, and services which offers a combined and flexible response to the servicing demand of certain types of vessel and cargo, permitting the optimum utilization of manpower and equipment.
All right, so welcome back. You would have heard in my intro that tonight we are going to bring you a recapitulation of all that we did in the year 2023. We're highlighting some of the major and crucial topics that we discussed in the course of the year for today. And that's how we want to conclude the last edition of Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television. We've put together a beautiful piece that you can't resist. Please enjoy.
The year 2023 was not short of newsy, informative, and compelling content on Iron Port. From the development of infrastructural projects to the achievement of major performance milestones and the rollout of debate-provoking national policies, among others, 2023 was a very eventful one in Ghana's maritime industry. Beginning January 1, 2023, the government of Ghana, through the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, scrapped the discount policy on import values of general goods and home delivery values of vehicles during the payment of duties at the various ports and frontiers in Ghana.
You work on behalf of your clients as the importers. They bring these things in
and you go and then pick them out for them. And so you perhaps or automatically were those that were directly benefiting from the discounts when it was in place. Tell us what you make of this particular announcement by government of the complete reversal of the values.
Yeah, the complete reversal to us may also defeat the very reasons why the discount was brought into place. As he rightly said, in 2019, we were made to understand that the prices of goods on the market were just too much, and the duties being paid by the importers were also quite too much. And therefore, it has also given room for people to smuggle goods into the country through the by road or through the other frontiers, apart from Tema and Takoradi. Even Tema and Takoradi, they did. Now, so the reason was that let us reduce the FOB values by 30%, 50%, so that it will encourage importers to come through Tema, Takoradi, or the approved routes.
Yes.
So that was one of the major points. The other point was that because the duties were just too high, goods on the market were equally very high. And therefore, let us reduce the FOB values so that importers or the wholesalers or the retailers will be able to sell their goods at reasonable prices.
Right.
And the other issue was about fake invoices and invoices. Now, why do I go in for fake invoices if the values are quite reasonable or quite low? So let us not stretch it too much. The benchmark values is somewhere in $20 per piece. Now, okay, even if you bring $20 per piece, so even if it is $20 per piece, let us reduce it by 30% or by 50%, 20 to 10. That's quite reasonable, so that there will be no, and you will not be encouraged even to go in for fake invoices or try to reduce your invoices or try to cut corners and all that. So these were some of the reasons that the government gave, and at the end of the day, we expect facilitation of trade if things have been made reasonable for the importers. The issue is that, as you rightly again said, on the market, where the reduction reflecting on the price of goods, the popular answer was about no. And therefore, people also felt that the monies were going into the pockets of the importers or the wholesalers or the retailers. And therefore, there was no need for the government even to have taken the 50% off the FOB values.
Yes.
If there was no need, then therefore, why is the government doing that? Because the government is losing so much in terms of income. So if that is not reflected on the market, and has it also reduced smuggling? To some extent, yes, it also encourages people to come through Tema or to come to the approved routes. Yes. Smuggling, I can say that it really encourages people also not to also try to cut corners and all that. But then the ultimate is on the market, where the price of goods reduced. Now, the importers again also give you reasons that aside the duty that they were paying, the depreciation of the cedi and some other factors were also contributing to the high price of goods on the market. And therefore, not only the duties, but then other factors also contributed. So the 50% had been swallowed, as it were. And therefore, we came back to square one. So that has been the history of this benchmark discount values.
So I just want to find out from you whether you think that with a complete reversal, the tendency for people to begin to cut corners again is high.
Yes. You see, with a complete reversal, there are some goods that even if you increase by 20%, 30%, the demand will still be. You have the elastic demand and the inelastic demand. The demand will still be there. There are some goods, even if you increase by 1% again, you will not have patronage. And again, to some of these importers or wholesalers are also absorbing the 30% is part of their profit. Now, it means that a reduction in the profit levels of these importers. Now, they're prepared to swallow that part as part of their profit, or they will have to increase the cost of goods on the market.
Right.
Also, a 110% increment in the rates charged for freight forwarding services in the country was agreed and began implementation.
I said I was going to come to you and find out whether you are satisfied with the rates that you've arrived at, and if you will, walk us through some of the rates. I also have a very, very funny question. Do you share the...
Oh, okay, all right. Let me begin with that.
Yes.
We do share with our clients, because we always want to be transparent with the client, to build confidence. And then that is what, it even creates loyalty and honesty
trust,
between us. Yes, so we do share with our clients.
Right.
But using the 2016 tariff as a reference, in fact, we proposed a certain percentage increase, of course, and that was what we really fought for. Because 2016, as he said, dollar was 3.9, and now dollar 11% going. If you look at the margin, it's over 300%. And so why don't we then go for 250% increase? Because even the tariff as we have today...
But the dollar has further come down now.
Oh, no.
It's
we were looking at the time of the negotiation.
Okay.
Yes, it was 11.
Okay.
Inflation was 40.4, as against 17.5 in 2016. And so even fuel prices. Okay, so putting all these together, then the best we could have gone was for 250%. And again, the rates, even as we have today, is going to last for 2 more years, of which economic, activities and the uncertainties are there being expected. And so then we needed more. But I'm sure most shippers appreciate the kind of service we render. Getting goods out of the port, if you scale all the activities that get goods out of the port, freight forwarder offers about 70%, if not over, of these activities.
Your microphone.
Okay? Because we do pre-arrival, activities are there that we perform. When the cargo arrives, there are activities that we perform. And then post-arrival, when the cargo has arrived and even cleared, activities that we perform.
Right.
And so we really assessing the intensity of these services, then we need more percentage. But then, as I said, there's an adage that where a place that gives you daily bread, you don't destroy the place. Or the golden hen that lays the golden eggs, obviously you cannot strangle or kill it. And so that's where we had engagement. There are a lot of disagreements. And I must say that this was most hectic negotiation process that really was subjected to.
Still in January, the 17th extraordinary session of the General Assembly of the Maritime Organization of West and Central Africa, MOCA, was held in Accra, Ghana. The 3-day meeting, which brought together ministers of member states and high-level technical experts and advisors, was essentially used to give consideration and adopt a MOCA-IMO joint action plan that seeks to contribute to strengthening of the maritime economy in the region. In February, GPHA's Marine Operations Unit liaised with the Ghana Navy in an oil spill response drill as part of Ghana's participation in the 2023 edition of Obangami Express, a multinational maritime exercise in the Gulf of Guinea. On corruption in the maritime sector, Vivek Menon, an Associate Director Global Operations and Industry Engagement of the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network, revealed plans to initiate the Collective Action Project in Ghana, following the success the project chalked in Nigeria.
In your opening speech at the Vessel Clearance Workshop, which was in Ghana here, you noted that evidence-based methods of analyzing corruption risks are key in your agenda. Vivek, can you tell us about this? And what are some of the data-driven research that your outfit has come up with or encountered in your dealings so far?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and it's an important one. Many of us must be familiar with the perception-based indices that are available globally on countries. When MACN started its work, it was very, very important to understand how we are going to measure, one, what is the problem, what is the quantum of the problem, and very importantly, how are we going to measure progress, if there is any progress, because shipping for many, many years have been struggling with this challenge. It is not a new challenge. So in order to address that, at the very beginning, when MACN was established, it started off with what we call an anonymous incident data reporting system. it is still there. 10 years on, I must say, or 10, 11 years on, I must say, we have been collecting this type of incident data, which is not a perception of what happened in the port. Or what I mean by that is, when I came to a port, it is not me telling you how I felt, how the public official behaved in front of me. It is what happened, what transpired, and that is something that I can share with MACN. So it is a simple form that anyone can report, and it is on our website. And today, over the last 10 to 11 years, we've been collecting data, and we have more than 53,000 incidents reported all across the globe. It covers, if I'm correct, almost 150 countries, close to 1,200 ports. So we have data from all over the world where it shows that no country is immune to this challenge. No port is immune to this challenge. And there's a slide that we normally share. You can actually see the dots all across the globe where these problems are reported. And it looks like a pandemic that never went away, with no vaccination shot, unfortunately.
Maritime consultant and legal practitioner Dr. Emmanuel Kofimbia made a passionate appeal to government to take a critical look at the development of Ghana's blue economy to provide a more permanent economic buffer to the nation's perennial hardship.
I dare say that the blue economy has the capacity or ability to give some respite, perhaps to countries that are reeling under serious economic hardship, and maybe developing countries in general. Yeah. If you come to our country, Ghana, we are working assiduously to achieve some consensus with the IMF for a bailout, sort of, to inject some, life into our economy and all that, if you agree with me.
Yeah.
I don't want to find out from you, is this what the blue economy has the potential to do for countries if we manage it properly?
You're right. Maybe. I mean, I don't have the figures, I don't have any statistics, but I believe that maybe if we had focused, our minds on the potential of the blue economy and harness that potential, we will not be going to the IMF. Will not be, and I would explain, as we go on, and you would see that there is enormous potential.
Right.
I mean, look, it is estimated, that the ocean and its resources is worth over $24 trillion. It's worth over $24 trillion, the ocean and its resources. Yes. You get me? If you take the United States of America, for example, in the year 2020, America had its GDP 1.7% from its ocean economy, which amounts to over $360 billion. $360 billion. If you come to the European Union, about $500 billion for the European Union. Euros, 500 billion euros. Yes. That is the ocean economy. You get me? So that should tell you that for these people, they have realized long ago the potential that this holds. I mean, if you look at, before we started, you showed Evergreen, carrying 24,000 TEUs of containers. Yes. To have a ship in a place that will displace a certain amount of water cannot be anywhere than in the oceans.
Absolutely.
You get me? So when we talk about the potential of the oceans, we are not looking at it in the narrow sense of what do we get from the oceans. No. But you are looking at it because the ocean exists. Yes. What can I create? So someone knows that I can build a ship that can carry 24,000 TEUs. Building that ship is an economy.
Absolutely.
It's an economy. There is no doubt about
24,000 containers.
24,000 TEUs. And if you take Asia, they control about 70% of the production of our ships. So they build 70% of the ships that come out there. Why would not their economies grow? But it's all related to the oceans. So when we talk about the blue economy, we don't look at it in the narrow sense of the word. We look at it in the broader sense in terms of the complementarities, in terms of the synergies that it will help to create.
All right, so can we zoom into the key areas that we can look at in terms of our economy that can be harnessed, for the good of this country?
It is important to mention that when we are looking at the potential we are looking in terms of maybe one major thing like the port of Tema. And out of the port of Tema, you are aware you create maybe the shipping harbor, you create the shipyard and dry dock, the cocoa processing factory, vacuum, other industries, all of them that then relate to the port. In fact, it is that combination of things which benefits one from the other that I refer to as the blue cluster. The blue cluster. So I use the terminology, the blue cluster approach, to relate to using the sea as a fulcrum and therefore as a center point.
Right.
And with that center point, you generate an economy around various things.
Right.
I've used Tema as an example.
Right.
For example, if we take our Atuabo, you get me? If we develop Atuabo, what do we intend it to be? Is it only a gas plant and that is all?
Yeah.
But there are other complementarities that can come from Atuabo.
Right.
And therefore, our thinking, our perception should not be limited only to Atuabo. But then, what other industries can flow from there and benefit from the gas resources that you are tapping from the sea? If you take, we are taking upstream oil.
Yes.
To what extent do we break it down to maybe midstream and downstream? Because until you do that, then the benefits that are derivable from the blue economy are not derived.
Yes.
You get me? So it's important for you, even at the stage of planning, to know that, yes, I'm going to take my oil and gas resources from the seabed, but even as I take my oil and gas resources, what other things do I put in place such that I can realize the potential of the blue economy?
Right.
It's very important. So you are taking oil and gas, but that is not the end.
Right.
Once you get the oil and gas, you move from upstream to midstream to downstream. And then you see what industries can relate to this. And consequently, all of this have synergies which they create for the benefit of the oil and gas industry. If you don't harness that potential and you take your oil from the belly of the sea and then you pump it into tanks and they drive it away, you are losing the potential that the blue economy generates. And that is key for us. And that is why I said we must be thinking beyond just harnessing the product, but what other complementarities, what other synergies does it give us?
In March, the freight forwarding fraternity kicked against government's intended policy to allow the self-declaring of goods by importers without recourse to customs house agents, demanding clarity.
Why are we worried about this? In fact, if you go into the trade facilitation agreement, which my brother talked about, in Article 10.6, this is what it says, and that is the reason why we're coming up with this. Okay, so in 10.6, it says that, it talks about the use of the customs broker. It says, without prejudice to the important policy concerns of some members, that's members of the WTO, that currently maintain a special role for customs brokers, which is us.
Yes.
From the entry into force of this agreement, members shall not introduce the mandatory use of customs brokers. So the agreement is saying that, look, once this goes into force, although some countries have, clearing agents, and they have made special, arrangements for them, it shouldn't be mandatory for anybody to say that, look, any country to say that, look, mandatorily go through a customs broker before you clear. So, no big deal. That has found expression in our laws, in the Act 891 of Customs.
Right.
Okay? Okay. But here comes the...
2015.
Exactly.
Yes.
So in the Act 891, so that has found expression. How did they find expression? We have self-declarance. So there are companies now who actually do clearing without coming through the freight forwarder. Because all you need to do, like my brother said, you need to go through the processes as in the law.
Right.
If you look at the LI 2248 that you talked about, sections 40, regulations 19 to 33 will tell you all about how how you have to license, how you have to. But then what do we do? So companies who want to do their own clearing from the port can actually apply to the customs commissioner and say, we want to do a clearing. They need to make sure that that company at least has an employee, one employee who has a customs certification. The reason is that you need to make sure that these people can actually do customs business. And so what do we do to get into this position? It means that for us, you have to be trained, you have to be certified, you have to be licensed, you have to be bonded, you have to go through all the police checks to make sure that you are fit to do what? Customs business. How are we going to do this now if you want individuals to just go in? Are you going to make it easier for them so that they would avoid all these things so that they can do their clearing? So be it. Look, even the legal, if you go to the court, you could always walk in and say, look, you want to defend yourself. But the judges sitting there know that, look, hey, they would even try to push to find what? To get you a lawyer to it because they know you do not know the basics. And trust me, mother, what we do there is not a joke. Okay? The systems that have been put in place and all that you have to, the kind of training that we go through to qualify to do that is not easy.
In efforts to maximize efficiency at the port of Tema, the Meridian Port Services, in collaboration with the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, constructed a Harbourcraft jetty at the Terminal 3 in the port of Tema. The Harbourcraft jetty was created primarily to reduce vessel idle time at the terminal in order to improve vessel turnaround time in the port. In April, importers of agro-imports called for government, through the Ministry of Finance, to urgently heed to their request of granting special tax exemption on the importation of their products so they can enjoy some respite in the process to clear their goods from the port. Indeed, later in the year, the Minister of Finance announced that government will grant exemptions on the importation of agricultural machinery and equipment.
It's been a whole year of hustle and tussling, and we've been on this same platform a couple of times to talk about the need for government to implement the tax exemptions. Well, this came up, our quest for government to grant the tax exemptions came up last year when somewhere in September 22nd or 12th, government passed the Tax Exemptions Act, 2022 Act 1083. And in that Tax Exemptions Act, agri-inputs were not captured. And that would mean that this year, whoever was bringing in agri-inputs into the country would have to pay all the port charges, including the duty, which increased the cost of inputs exorbitantly. And this had a lot of significant impact on food security and the cost of inputs as well. And this made us start to engage government and other stakeholders in that same value chain for government to give us a listening ear, understand that tax exemptions that hitherto were given to the industry on the importation to agricultural inputs was very critical. And listening to the finance minister present the budget, and as you rightly mentioned on number 7, I think, point 7, VII.
Yes.
He has mentioned that they will give tax exemptions to agri-inputs, and this came, this was like music to the ears of us and then the majority of the importers across the country.
Majority of your companies?
Yes.
CropLife, how many companies do you have under your belt?
Currently, CropLife, we have about 23 companies and still counting, and all these companies are into manufacture, importation and distribution of crop protection products and fertilizers as well. Crop protection products, as we know, are pesticides.
Yes.
And they also import other agri equipment such as machinery, seeds, and other tools as such. So this was really music to the ears of our companies and then all those into the agricultural value chain, because they know how significant this is going to be, a game changer in the food security initiatives of this country. This has become very important because if you just in June this year, government launched the Planting for Food and Job Phase 2.
Yes.
And as it is, agriculture in Ghana here contributes to about 38.3% of the workforce.
Yes.
You know, and that is huge. 38.3% of the workforce. And it's contributed to about 20% of GDP for the last 6 years, from 2017 to 2022. So that shows you how significant agriculture is in the economy of Ghana. And before you can achieve all these things, inputs has to be given priority.
Right.
When input is accessible and available, then you can increase productivity and then achieve the food security that we've all been looking out for. The Tax Exemptions Act still exists, which was launched last year. That's the Act 2022-1083. Yes. And we still want to push government to include agri-inputs explicitly in the Exemptions Act.
Right.
Because once it's not included, so that we don't come back the year after again to talk about exemptions again. Yeah. Because now government has agreed through the Ministry of Finance to grant these tax exemptions for agri-inputs. So as Oliver Twist, we appreciate government's commitment towards the exemptions, and this is going to have a very big impact on food security initiatives as we speak, heading towards next season.
Calls for the revival of now-defunct state-owned Black Star Line resurfaced on Iron Port.
Mr. Ajimai, I want to draw us a bit, backwards a bit, and I want to use MV Adobia, if you heard about it.
Come again.
I want to give an example about MV Adobia. This was a feeder vessel that was acquired by Stanley Aholu, who is also in the industry. He's a legal practitioner and he's an entrepreneur as well. And this was a feeder vessel that traversed the West African sub-region, picking cargo from one destination to the other and all that. But it was short-lived.
Yeah.
It didn't live long.
Yes.
I mean, he tried something on his own as a Ghanaian.
Yes.
Perhaps on a very small scale. And this didn't work. But we're looking at the broader picture, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Establishing a national carrier in the shipping industry. How easy do you think this would be?
If I may add a little to what my senior said, probably disagree a little with him.
Right.
When it comes to the PPP agreement, yes. I think that's the way to go. My only challenge, or where I disagree with him, is where we may involve foreigners. I'm not against foreign investment,
right.
But I think for the purpose of a national pride, we should be able to trust the Ghanaian to be able to do something. So there should be a PPP agreement, being Ghanaian. That's my
Only
point.
Ghanaian.
Yes.
Only Ghanaian.
Government can own a portion, then other Ghanaian investors can own a portion. I don't subscribe to the idea of BOT, build, operate, and transfer, because in most of those agreements, it doesn't favor Ghanaians. So the Ghanaians that are supposed to acquire technical knowledge and skills will end up not getting it. And then the contract is over, then we need to extend it because they've not gotten the required expertise. Yeah. So that is my little challenge. But I think the PPP should be the way to go. And the terms should be transparent. It should be more favorable to the Ghanaian. That's my point about that. Now, coming back to the issue of somebody tried to do it.
Exactly, yes.
When we were off camera, I was speaking to my senior. And then he told me jokingly that I can see you have a lot of interest in Ethiopia. That's what he told me. And I said, yes, I have a lot of interest in Ethiopia because I think it's a model for shipping company, national or state shipping company. When you got to Ethiopia in 1964, that's when they started their operation. As you speak today, they have well over 400 vessels. Wow. Ethiopia. Wow. You go online, you see it. They have over 300 cargo vessels. They have about 84 or more oil vessels. How did Ethiopia do it? Transparency, commitment, government support.
In similar fashion, spirited appeals for youth development and employment in the maritime industry were made on the show.
We have graduates that are being churned out, from various institutions, across the country in the shipping industry. The foremost is the Regional Maritime University and all that. And most of the time, you find people, running after you whenever they hear there's an event here or there, trying to get connected and trying to get people to receive their CVs and all that in terms of their quest to get job placements in some of these institutions. I just want to find out from you whether you would want to share with us some of the things that we should be doing in terms of creating jobs to assimilate or to accommodate, so to speak, some of these graduates that we churn out almost on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I think that the first step is to breed a new generation of entrepreneurs in the maritime industry as the next generation of job creators, right? we normally think of it in a limited sense, that we have to have, companies and industries ready to absorb these young people as they graduate. And that is true, but we must also look at breeding entrepreneurs who themselves can also create jobs in blue economy sectors. And that's one of the things that the Gulf of Guinea Maritime Institute is passionate about. We are not just looking at equipping young people with the skills that they need to work in maritime the maritime industry, but we are also looking at it from a holistic point of view, that we need them to be entrepreneurs in the space. And I think another important thing is to generate an understanding of how other career paths also lead back to the ocean, right? So let's just take, for instance, the fact that we might have some young persons who might be passionate about the ocean. Perhaps they end up working in an accounting firm, right? There are still ways that they can meaningfully contribute to the advancement of the blue economy. There are things that they can do on the side, besides their full-time regular jobs, to carve their very own niche in ocean sectors. And I think this is one of the things we've been reiterating. So accountants, for instance, can begin to look into the issue of accounting for the ocean economy, right? So can economists. We can have so many permutations of career paths that circle around the ocean, even if they are not in the traditional or mainstream ocean pathways that we normally think of, such as shipping, marine biology, and so on and so forth. And then the final point is that the government must put policies in place to encourage blue economy ventures, because we talked about entrepreneurship earlier. I mean, it cannot be successful without the government buy-in and without government actively putting steps in place to make sure that these young persons, once they come out, have the bandwidth that they need to be able to set up their own blue economy businesses.
There had just been, conference in Kenya.
Yes.
Where it has been, it has been suggested that Ghana, we should start, Africa is going to be the hub for the next generation of seafarers. We expect about 800,000. Please mind that number, 800,000 seafarers.
Yes, from Africa.
From Africa to man the new ships because of the decarbonization of these things. Which means the government, which means there's quite a lot of, potential there.
Absolutely.
Even if we can target 400,000.
Yes.
Okay. At present, Philippines is around 400,000.
Right.
And they are making about 7 billion
every year.
Every year. So we let's say half of it. We should, because I believe we should aim very, very high.
Absolutely.
And if the government can put in the correct, facilities and policies in place, I think we should be able to make that money. It's actually a gold mine.
In March 2023, cruise vessels resumed calling the ports of Ghana following a 4-year break due to COVID-19. Pundits in industry called for the creation of an overarching body that is responsible for the management of Ghana's blue economy.
You need to plan your ocean space and manage it. It will be difficult for one institution like Ghana Maritime Authority, for instance, to take charge of everything. You need to have a coordinating unit that would also be responsible for research and all that, and in planning the use of the ocean space. And that informed the call for having something like a blue economy authority that would be a coordinating unit of all the actors and players within the ocean space, so that we would be able to properly harness the resources and exploit them sustainably. When you talk to Maritime Authority, they will say, well, we are in charge of the entire maritime space because we are created to have control over all the activities within the maritime space. Then the Ghana Navy will tell you, we are in charge of security within the maritime space. And so when it comes to security issues, nobody, even if you bring vessels for fisheries law enforcement, it must be managed by the Ghana Navy. So even though the law has set up all these state institutions to play various roles, where there are supposed to be interfaces, it rather creates conflict. Now, And interestingly, when you go onto Fisheries Commission Board, for instance, you have read from EPA, Maritime Authority, Ghana Navy, all on the Fisheries Commission Board. If you go to Ghana Maritime Authority Board, you have read from Fisheries Commission, Ghana Navy, EPA on their board. If you go to EPA board, you have rep from all these institutions on their boards. Yet we are unable to get to work together because the mandates are different.
In May, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo commissioned the expanded Elmina Fishing Harbour. Also in May, a taking stock transparency assessment conducted by the Fisheries Transparency Initiative in collaboration with the Center for Maritime Law and Security Africa indicated transparency deficits in Ghana's marine fisheries sector.
If you look at the global average, we have now 60% of all the people living on this planet access the internet on a regular basis. In Ghana, it's even higher. In Ghana, it is 69%. So almost 7 out of 10 people in Ghana access the internet on a regular basis. So the internet is the way to provide and distribute information to the people of Ghana. So if, one of the recommendations that our report made is to make the information that the authorities already have publicly available. One of the points that I was asked while I was in Ghana last week, and that echoes a little bit your question, Kennedy, what should be done now, was the aspect of the closed fishing season. Now, this is a policy measure that the government has put in place. And the question that was asked to me, and I think others, was, is it working? Now, it's certainly not our job to say, whether certain management aspects are working in a particular country. But even if I wanted to, I could not answer this particular question because the government has reports that look at how successful was the closed fishing season on the biodiversity of the targeted fish species. So has it, helped to recover the fish stock? And what were the impacts from a socioeconomic point of view on the fishers? But that report is not publicly available. So if you want to understand whether the government is heading in the right direction, you can't, because the information that the government has is not publicly available.
The Ghana Revenue Authority also announced the introduction of an upfront payment of 12.5% on the customs values of VAT registrable imports at the various entry points of the country.
Is there a scope for the application or implementation of this particular policy?
Sure. So persons who are required by law to register, if you are dealing in a taxable activity, you import goods into the country worth 200,000 cedis and above, it means that you qualify to be registered.
Okay.
So if you have not registered, then the upfront payment of 12.5% will be applicable to you. It means that you have to make sure that you go and regularize your registration process before you'll be excluded. But if you have not registered, then it means that the 12.5% upfront payments will be applicable to you. So the threshold is 200,000 cedis and above per consignment or annually.
Okay.
We are looking at annual figures. So if you import goods into the country, let's say this month you imported goods worth 190,000 Ghana cedis, you have not met the threshold, so it means that you are not qualified to make this upfront payment. But subsequent months you import again, then it means that we need to monitor you, and then you would have to, the 12.5% will be applicable on you.
The Ghana Exports Promotion Authority launched the Ghana Trade House in Nairobi, Kenya, as part of initiatives to improve trade relations with East Africa.
Absolutely.
Last month, from 23rd to 27th of May, we had a big expo.
Wow.
And we took advantage of that also to launch our Ghana Trade House.
Okay.
It's an export trade
in
house
Kenya.
in Kenya, in Nairobi, where most of these products that we are pushing into the Kenyan and East African markets are going to go through. And Moses will testify that it's a very big thing.
Okay, so that's the trade house you commissioned in Kenya.
So this is the trade house that we commissioned in Kenya, and it's going to display most of our made in Ghana products, exclusively made in Ghana. So you can see the chocolate section.
Absolutely.
You can see the cosmetic section, and all that. So Moses' products are also there. And already trading has started.
Wow.
And we are getting daily reports.
Wow.
Yeah, that people are patronizing and it's moving on very, very well.
Wow.
And it's also going to have a warehouse where the products, when shipped, will be distributed from there.
Wow.
And we are very hopeful that we are going to get a lot of orders from this.
So for the cosmetics, I would say the response is good. Myself and a very good brother, Amanex, we were all over town and we are having good responses.
Right.
In fact, we are going to ship in about a week or two.
Into Kenya?
Yes, into Kenya already. If you may ask what the challenges are or hurdles, I don't see them as challenges. It may be the harmonization bit.
Yes.
Because we have to certify our products at their standards, you know.
That is under AFTA.
And in Kenya.
Yes.
Yes.
So Alex
under AFTA, and they already moved towards that. We are in touch with the Kenya Exports Kenya Standards Bureau. We call it KEBS, Kenya Standards Bureau, to work on this conformity certificate in harmonizing our standards. Already there has been discussions between the two institutions. It's not a big deal. The only thing is to get the appropriate channels through which this will be regularized.
In June, Peter Amobediako took over from Captain Ebenezer Afezi as the director of the port of Takoradi.
I hand over the head of our affairs for Port of Takoradi.
The maiden edition of the National Blue Economy Summit, aimed at mobilizing transformative ocean action to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, was also held in June 2023. In the aftermath of the Blue Economy Summit, experts called for a science-based ocean management approach for Ghana's blue economy.
This vast resource, a mixture of lack of technology, a mixture of our culture and other things, and then the unavailability of funds, resources, logistics, and my brother mentioned research vessel. In fact, if you go to other universities and other parts of the world, as he said, even a small university department has got a research vessel and all that. Yeah, we haven't got. Okay, our department, for instance, I'm representing academia, and we are the mother of all departments that have been that have offshoot all the other departments studying oceanography and fisheries. Were established since 1988. In fact, by statute 1962, and later started programs in 1988. I started teaching in 1997. You know, so over the years, currently we have over 7 universities running oceanography, fisheries, water-related courses in this country. You know, and there's quite a lot of publications and things out there. Through individual efforts and through collaborations with international partners. But as a nation, we have put very little into research and these vast resources. Because, and another point is our over-reliance on the land. And the land has got a huge impact on the ocean. So the land is, over time, overwhelming the oceans. Overwhelming the ocean. The impact on the ocean is becoming more and more. Then all these climate-related issues that we don't really understand very well. So there's really a need for a national investment into the ocean science. I remember way back in my early career, when I had my first lecture on a topic like this, an interfaculty lecture, I even postulated that we should have 1% of our GDP put aside for science.
Several initiatives to discourage plastic pollution in the marine environment were embarked on by stakeholders in the maritime industry.
I just wanted to give us a sense of what the situation is in terms of this particular phenomenon in our country. Is it that bad? Should we be worried?
If you are, let's say, drinking something or you are eating something and you are choked, you see how difficult it is for you to even breathe. You think that at that moment you will die. So that is what we are subjecting
suffocate,
subjecting the F to. If you look at the black polythene bag, the one that immediately you take it, you have to dispose it. Immediately you take it, and continually we are churning that. And if you go to our landfills, The landfills are easily filled up. The moment we have a landfill, it's filled within a short time. Why? Because the plastics that go in there, the volume, you see, the plastic has so much volume to occupy when it goes to the landfill. And unfortunately, it does not decompose easily like other materials. A plastic bottle like this will take 450 years, that's what study has shown, to decompose. There has been so much education. I happen to be on the technical committee on NADMO, man-made disasters, some years back. And about that, roughly will be 10, 11 years now. So we were looking at this plastic pollution as one of the man-made disasters that we are creating in this country. And again, over there, the argument has been on this ignorance. And all the time we say we need to educate. So let's say 10 years from that time, can we still hold on to the ignorance argument? I see my colleagues, even before we started, my colleagues in the regions, the EPA staff, one of the critical things that they do, or the greater work, is education. So they go all the time using the radio, using information sectors, and they are always there educating the people, the assemblies, on the way to manage waste. And it has been ongoing. So, long and short, there has been so much education in this country. It is simply behavior.
Attitude.
Attitude. It is simply attitude. A lot of us have the knowledge. It is only that we are refusing to use it.
The year also saw local manufacturers cry for government intervention in the cost of production in order to be competitive and export.
So now we are uncompetitive because Malaysian oil is cheaper than ours. So that is the reason why every country is doing the same. Benin has done in the past, Sierra Leone has done in the past, and Senegal has done now. So we also beg the government that they should now today in Ghana the product is from Ivory Coast and Togo, just because they can bring without duty to Ghana, no? And other countries, whereas when we want to go, we are faced with this barrier of extra taxes.
What we have seen here means that they are producing under capacity. Why is it so? Because the enabling environment is simply not there for them, and it is not the making of the trader that this enabling environment is not there. We have to make deliberate effort by government. Government should do a deliberate effort to make sure that they are reviving the dying industries, as we've seen in this company. A company that used to employ about over 1,000 employees are now employing only about 200.
Experts continue to make a good case for local marine insurance.
There are several benefits.
You mentioned general average.
Yes, so I'll explain. First, when you import, you realize that the law is regulating imported goods into the country, not exported goods outside of the country. Simply because when you are exporting goods, it's going to somebody else's country, and they will have their own laws and regulations, similar to what we have here, which will make it mandatory for their citizens to also buy insurance, because usually the risk will occur at the destination. When you import goods and your container comes, or you are offloading your bags of rice from a vessel, you'll notice the loss or damage in country. So once you notice loss or damage in country, it is easier for you when you have insured locally to walk to your insurance company and take your claim. Again, you are buying, anytime you are buying goods a step further in any of the Incoterms, and the seller is doing the obligation for you, it means they are adding their margins. And that is what people don't realize. So if I am arranging the transport for you, I have to add my margin on the transport. If I'm arranging insurance for you, I have to add my margin on the insurance. So if I'm doing all the throughput from origin to destination, it means for every stage, I have to add my margins.
Right.
And so it means you are paying more for something that you could have done locally yourself at no extra margin to your business. So you are losing money. Again, it is easier to make claims with an insurance company that is within the country, where one, you are buying the insurance in foreign exchange. So again, you are making losses on foreign exchange. And we all complain that our CD is always fluctuating. These are some of the things.
The Ghana Revenue Authority later in the year announced some amendments to the Income Tax Act and the Excise Duty Act.
When we come to Mr. Powell, let's talk the new excise taxes. Tell us some of the products to be affected by these taxes.
Well, the new products that have come in include fruit juices, electronic cigarettes, liquids.
Is that shisha?
Not exactly, but
shisha.
we have, yes, electronic cigarettes.
Okay, yes.
And then we have the liquids,
Okay.
electronic cigarettes, liquids. And we have also imposed excise duty on virtually all soft drinks.
All soft drinks?
All soft drinks.
Okay.
But previously we had excise duty on only carbonated soft drinks. Now we have a standard scope
Okay.
to cover all soft drinks, sweetened beverages. Let me
Right.
put it that way. Previously, we were excising only carbonated soft drinks, as I said, like the Coca-Colas, the Fantas, those products that contain gas. You know. But now we have also realized
And
that
energy drinks?
energy drinks.
Yes.
Yeah. We've noticed that the other soft drinks equally are harmful.
Right.
Contain sugar.
Yes.
And the intake of them cause a lot of problems, health problems, you know. The non-communicable diseases is on the rise, you know,
Right.
diabetes, hypertension, and the rest. So I think we have expanded the scope, as I said.
In August, GPHA reopened the Fish Market Hall in Tema after 7 months of refurbishment. Similarly, in Takoradi, GPHA commissioned a workshop facility for the Ghana Inshore Fishermen Association. Environmental and social impact assessment for the keenly monitored Port of Keta project began in September. Following India's ban on the export of non-basmati white rice, pundits had some advice for government.
So again, there's a need for countries, developing countries like Ghana and others, to look at ways to secure their access to food. Food sufficiency does not necessarily mean that you produce all that you need, but it means you have access to it all year round whenever you need it. And so it is important for us to begin to think about the strategies to do that.
Yes.
I think the challenges on the production side have been enumerated.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that you cannot go ahead to work on your production, because production is the beginning. I do think that we have capacity to expand production. There are already government initiatives that have gone on, planting for food and jobs, that went on for a while. There's been subsidy for rice. Farmer Morrison has mentioned initiative to support multiplication of seeds and things like that for rice sector. I think those should be pursued aggressively. Number two, I think we should look at increasing irrigated rice production. I've seen irrigated rice production in Esuchari. Some are coming up in the Nasia, Nabugu area, very much supported. So those things should be expanded.
Right.
Those other support services that are needed to drive rice production should also continue. I'm talking about access to finance, that banks and all kinds of financial institutions should begin to look at innovative ways to support the rice production industry, especially those commercial banks that, you know, have high interest. He mentioned smart guarantees, the use of guarantees established by GESAL, Ghana Incentive Risk System, which is supporting banks to be able to support agricultural sector. So these are things that for Ghana we should continue to do. I'm just saying that it should be accelerated. We should have a strategy. The rice strategy, which was 2008, of course, that kind of was almost enhanced by the planting for food and jobs. But we need a new strategy.
To retool the port of Tema and boost productivity, GPHA added a set of 27 tele-trucks and 2 cranes to its fleet. This was strengthened by 2 80-ton state-of-the-art tugboats, which were named after 2 former directors general. Meridian Port Services will later on take delivery of 3 ship-to-shore and 12 rubber-tied gantry cranes at the Terminal 3. During the commissioning ceremony, President Nana Akufo-Addo cut sword for the second phase of Tema Port Expansion Project, which encompasses the paving of an expansive 270,000 square meter area, expanding the terminal's footprints from 100 hectares to an impressive 127 hectares. Chief Executive Officer of MPS, Mohammed Samara, in an exclusive with Iron Port, revealed that Tema will be the first port of call in West Africa for major shipping lines.
Right. We have attracted trade between China and some countries that have challenges that could not take the big ship, where the big ship came to us and then we transshipped the cargo to neighboring ports. Yes. That's one. But also one big thing, trade between China and Brazil. The West Africa run from the Far East had a capacity. And one of the lines decided that, why not fill it up with Brazilian cargo? Instead of having a service to go to Brazil, I'll bring it to West Africa, and the cross-Atlantic service will pick from West Africa sends to Brazil. So we've created here, an intercontinental hub. Another line, they were exporting citrus fruits, for example, from Cape Town in South Africa to Europe. And they have a service coming from the Middle East around the Cape, and they have a service that comes from Europe, and both crisscross in Tema. So then the Middle East via Cape service picked up the orange containers into Tema, dropped it, and a day later, the Europe service docked in Tema. We loaded it with the citrus that came from Cape Town to take to Europe. So we became, again, a hub for Europe here. This model was never done because of port capabilities, because of depth, size of vessels, etc., etc. And at the moment, we have signed up for a complete, service, 2 feeder vessels, weekly service into Cotonou, and they swing into Lagos periodically. And to carry almost 300,000 containers per annum. And that has pushed it. And with this new service of CMA CGM, we're going to see some big transshipment, because this mega ship is going to come to Tema, cannot go to the smaller ports, going to go to Lekki in Nigeria, then from there to Abidjan, and then out. So basically there's 3 ports of call. So the other ports, where are they going to transship for? Tema will be the ideal situation, because we are the first port of call. We have the draft, we have the capabilities that the ship can lighten up in Tema.
Awesome. Meanwhile, work has begun in the port of Takoradi for what will become the oil and gas terminal. In September, President Nana Akufo-Addo launched Ghana's National Integrated Maritime Strategy, which seeks to map out workable solutions to the industry's problems.
If you look at the document and you try to envisage the threats, for example, you realize what one of the things that is mentioned there is political will. You get me? Political will. And we use the word, time without number. But it is so important to see whether the will is there, as it were, to implement the things as you expect them to be done. And as for Doc and others who contribute, they'll do it. But then when it comes to the implementation, are we going to follow those things? There is always an accusation of, if you like, the political realm of sea blindness. To what extent can we get away this sea blindness? Because he mentioned that when they drew the Ghana map in those days, you did not drew only land, you never drew the sea. So it's important for us to bear in mind that it needs iron port, it needs seminars, it needs, one of the key things they also mentioned in the document is maritime domain awareness. Creating awareness of the maritime sector and its contribution.
October was a very eventful month in Ghana's maritime industry. GPHA led a massive delegation on a 5-day trade mission to the capital of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority announced some measures to cushion economic operators in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger who import through the ports of Ghana.
So the 5 days rent-free period was a problem for them. They've been complaining all this year. But because we want our partnership to grow, we have considered and we have made it 10 days now.
Following that, we found out that some of the challenges that have bedeviled the transit trade for many years remain.
You took part in transport sessions, during the, trade mission.
Yes, right.
I just want to find out from you some of the concerns that were raised. Because here tonight, that's one of the issues we're supposed to address. Okay. Some of the concerns of our transitors. Yeah. What are their problems? What are their challenges? What did they tell you when you went for these sessions?
Yes, in our interactions with the transporters, specifically the FETRB and then UCRB, yes, they brought out a number of issues. These issues generally centered around the cost associated, delays and cost associated with the delays in the enforcement of our road traffic governance regulations by the state institutions.
Right.
In specific terms, they mentioned the issues of multiplicity of barriers, police barriers, as a major concern. In one of our conversations, one participant even mentioned as many as 80 barriers on the corridor from Tema to Paga. And this is a major concern. They also brought up the issues of laissez-passer, that this process normally takes too long. Sometimes.
What is laissez-passer?
It's an undertaking sort of that is given for foreign trucks that are seeking to enter the country.
Right.
And pay the custom.
Like a permit.
Yes, okay, for them to come here. And per the custom regulations, as further explained by the commissioner, yes, this permit is supposed to be given for a period of up to about 90 days.
All right, 3 months. That's a quarter.
Yes, for 3 months. But for some reason, it's given for 30 days here. And the complaint, beyond the fact that this process is painfully slow for them, that when you are given the 30 days and you have to exit within the validity period, you are still not allowed to reuse the same laissez-passer, which was an issue. And the fact that if it expires, you need to go back to our borders to have it renewed, added to their frustration in this process. The issue of the axle load also came up to the extent that our axle control stations do not seem to be harmonized, do not seem to be in sync in the kind of readings that they give.
Right.
To the extent that sometimes you have the reading from the port
different from
the reading, probably, especially the reading in Tadiesu. In Tadiesu, there's this mobile van that is there, and that is a major source of worry for our transitors. And they also mentioned harassment. And beyond the multiplicity of the borders, they talked about the demand for illicit payment by our uniformed officers. These are all things that go to add to the cost for, yes, the transitors. And incidentally, these are issues that we as a union are quite familiar with. These are issues that we have engaged the relevant authorities at various levels on. And I believe that for them to have come up in the presence of such a high-powered delegation, the IGP of the Ghana Police Service was present, the Commissioner of Customs was also present, they heard it. So those of us who go for such discussions, we think this has given us a fresh opportunity to further tweak the arrangement to ensure that we take away these bottlenecks.
Right.
Because once these things are taken care of, you can be sure that we will definitely be the leading transit hub in the sub-region.
In a related development, following the obstacles that emerged out of the military coup in Niger, experts called for non-disruptive interventions at the Niger border in promotion of cross-border trade.
I did some research about the volumes of trade that are coming mainly in and out of Niger, based on the World Bank's WITS portal. And I came out with the following figures, because it's good to put things into perspective. Absolutely. We're talking about onion, maybe there's also livestock. Yes. We're talking about the inflow from Niger to Ghana, right? But there's also outflows, which means that Niger, Burkina, and Mali, being by definition landlocked countries, they will be completely relying on their land borders for the trade in and out of the country. Absolutely. So no one country in itself is an island. And in this case, if we take the example of Niger, their total exports amount to about $500 million annually, which means a monthly of 42 million. And then their total imports are about 2.1 billion annually. So they have a total of about 2.6 billion in and out going in, right? But that is trade in goods and in services. Now, I selected out of that total the animal trade and the food trade, which is of most interest in our case. In the case of animal trade, they have about $11.3 million of annual exports and then 61.9 million of annual imports. So it means they also import as much, close to 6 times as much as they export. And that brings it to about $6 million roughly of monthly animal trade. And then the figure for food trade is even higher, because they have about $118 million of monthly food trade. So you're talking about $124 million worth of food and agriculture and livestock in and out of Niger on a monthly basis. That is very highly disruptive for a country. And now you are no longer talking only about trade, because the discussion and the conversation has shifted horizontally more towards food security. Because, trade is about creating economic opportunities and bringing in the necessities, and then creating this kind of virtuous cycle where you can create economic opportunity for people, and then you can grow your economy, and then you can grow your way into prosperity. But now, because of border closures in some countries across West Africa for various reasons, maybe in this case we're talking about Niger, but a while ago there was a pandemic that shut all of the borders within West Africa. Throughout the past 3 years, there were other countries where there was destabilization of the regimes, and then the borders were closed for a while. So this certainly affects the type of trade, and it also affects the situation not only from a trade dimension. We also have to think about the food security dimension. We have to think about the economic opportunities, especially at the border communities. And that is where, from our humble experience over the past 10 years, where we found that most of the challenges of international trade reside. It's in the border communities and in the border areas, which are very wide, as you know, and are very difficult to control. So whether it is a sustainable drive to keep borders closed to achieve a certain objective, whether technical issues.
All right, so that was a recapitulation of all that happened here on Iron Port in the year 2023. It's just a summary of some of the major topics that we've treated on Iron Port here on Metropolitan Television. Remember, this is the last edition of the show for the year 2023. We want to thank you so much for being a part of Iron Port from day one and from the beginning of the year. We would at this juncture say big thanks to our sponsors, Ghana Revenue Authority, Guel PLC, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, Meridian Port Services, and indeed Phoenix Insurance. Remember, the show is proudly powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. We cannot leave out our esteemed resource persons who have always obliged us as and when we call on them. Because of them, the show has been quite consistent. We've grown from strength to strength. We thank them so much, and we know that in the year 2024, as we enter it, they will be more prepared to oblige us as and when we call on them. We thank the production teams, both at Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and here at Metro TV, who have always held us down and gotten this show, to you. And to you, the loyal listeners and viewers who have always watched and sent messages and called in to contribute, we are deeply grateful to you. We pray that the year 2024 will bring us glad tidings and good fortune so that we can have the strength to continue to serve you better. My name is Kennedy Mona. We thank you so much and see you in 2024.